Welcome to the Houston Huddle, where knowledge meets the game. 3 voices, every angle and beyond the headlines. Xavier Houston is a sports encyclopedia of knowledge, with a deep inside look at the recruiting landscape, from prospects to pipelines. He sees the whole board. Simeon Houston brings it play by play, thought by thought, breaking down the game with logic, clarity, and a deep understanding of how all the pieces fit together. And rounding out the huddle, Martin Houston, national champion, 2-time SEC champion, with insight forged in the field of play, with an unmatched passion for sports, leadership, and life. Together, they take you from the locker room
to the field, to inside the huddle. 3 voices, every angle,
beyond the headlines.
This is the Houston Huddle.
Now it's time to lock in.
It's time for the huddle. The Houston Huddle.
The Houston Huddle.
It's time for the huddle. The Houston Huddle.
Don't forget to like, follow, subscribe, and share on your favorite social platform. And let's get in the game.
Let's get in the game. It is now time for the Houston Huddle, and I'm driving solo today, so the guys are out. The Houston Huddle is the one-man huddle, one-man band, but I'm glad to be with you. Glad to have you with us. We're going to be hitting some audio for those of you who join the Martin Houston Show every day. You may have heard some of this audio, but I'll be giving some different thoughts and angles. Just a little bit more information has come out. We'll definitely be checking in on Alabama's running back situation today. We'll be recapping the scrimmage as a whole. Don't believe everything you read out there, everything you see out there, because some of it may not be the whole story. So we'll be breaking it down, but glad that you are with us on this beautiful, beautiful day. Remember that this is a day that the Lord has made, so let's rejoice and be glad in it. Take some time today to notice someone, love someone, serve someone, be the difference you want to see in the world today. And we'll start right off from the bat, hearing from the head coach at the University of Alabama, his opening comments post scrimmage, and then we'll just work in audio from him as well as other coaches, maybe not directly around the scripture, but I know that Coach Grubb had some interesting thoughts that we now have to kind of hang our head a little bit about as we move forward. So here's Coach DeBoer communicating with us post first scrimmage.
Scrimmage, try to make it game-like as possible. Just a lot of new faces that need to, make sure that feels like that's our home place and home turf. And so even wearing game jerseys today, we didn't get a chance to wear those in the spring. Just outside factors, but it was good to get the guys a lot of reps. Defense did a nice job coming out, setting the tone. Could execute a little bit better offensively, but led to a couple of takeaways, and that's always great to see because they were advantageous. You guys making plays, love to see that. And then the offense did a nice job of just slowly responding, coming back, and as the scrimmage went on, it became very balanced. So just great learning moments. We always want to take that from any practice, but a scrimmage is about as game-like as we're going to get. So a lot to learn from, and I know our guys are going to keep working. So.
Thanks, Coach.
All right, that's Coach DeBoer talking about the scrimmage. Couple of things real quick. He said we wore the game jersey. Did anybody pick up something on the jerseys? They've moved the SEC patch from the right side. Still have the Nike. That script A used to be right here in the center. Get that right there in the center. And now that's where the SEC is. Alabama making room for maybe a sponsor patch? I don't know. I know we had that as a big conversation on the Martin Houston show, was whether or not they were Alabama would find a sponsor, et cetera. That was just one of those quick sidebars that go back and check out the jerseys from media days and all of that, and you'll see that Alabama may be making room for a sponsor, or it may just be coincidence. I don't know. But either way, if it happens, we'll talk about it right here as well as on the Martin Houston show. Other things he talked about the scrimmage. I know you're reading a lot and you're hearing a lot. The defense was Martin's overview from the scrimmage was dominant. Okay. I had the privilege and opportunity as an alumnus to go. I can't report on the specifics of what I see when I'm in that type of environment, but I can tell you this, that the defense is legit. They're bigger, they're faster, they're stronger, they're more aggressive. And they came out fighting and ready to play. There was zero question which unit is going to be the strength of this team early on for sure. Hopefully the other units come along, the offense and the defense. And that's what happened as that scrimmage went along. They got better. The offense got better, the quarterbacks got better, and they were able to make some plays down the stretch. The scrimmage started off for both quarterbacks kind of slow, maybe even slower, potentially for Austin Mack based on how you view things. But by the end, both quarterbacks had responded in a positive way. Both quarterbacks made plays with their arm. I think Keelan probably was more elusive, but that's no surprise. I think Matt was better from the pocket. I don't think that's any surprise either. Unfortunately, Coach talked to us about the running back position, and here's what he had to say about that as well. Unfortunately, we have a little bit more to say, and I'm going to also bring in some things on from Grubb in regards to that.
Charlie on the far right.
Kind of a two-parter. Just what did you see from the running backs, and do you have an update on AK Deer and EJ Kroll?
EJ did not scrimmage today. He'll be out for a few practices here. He won't miss any games down the road. So he did not practice today. AK did suffer an injury. He actually was having a nice scrimmage, scored a touchdown. We'll evaluate him and figure out what the severity of that. So that was unfortunate because he was having a real nice scrimmage there with the touches he got. And so that's kind of the status on those two.
All right. That was the status on the two. Let's also check and hear what Grubb had said in regard to the running back room. Then I'll give you my thoughts and my comments in regards to the running back room, the running back situation, EJ, AK, and should Alabama be concerned at the running back position? So I'll give you my thoughts on that. But here is Coach Grubb just talking about the running back, and this is before the scrimmage, and then AK, of course, as you heard Coach say, was off to a great start.
Progression now that you're about a week into camp.
I'm glad you asked that today. I thought we had some really, really good runs today. A couple pops on some cutback lanes where the guys got their shoulders square. Daniel had a nice one. TB had another good one. AK Deer had a touchdown on a rail route. It was a competitive day for the running back. So I felt like it was coming from all different directions, though. Everybody was showing up and doing a really good job. So I think that the competition, is held strong. Those guys are, I think that's one of the biggest parts right now is the guys feeling that level of competition in the room.
All right, so that's Coach Grubb talking about it. So first of all, you heard from Coach DeBoer and what he had to say about the running back position, that they were having a good day, and AK was having a really, really good day before he got injured. Now, there's been no official, from what I've seen, report from the UA, and so I'm not going to say AK is going to be out and miss any significant time until I hear it officially reported from them. Of course, you hear people reporting that he had the tightrope surgery and things like that. If that proves to be the case, he could miss, up to, I guess, 4 to 6 weeks potentially. But everybody's body is different. And so if that is the case, how big of a hit is the AK Deer hit? I don't want to sugarcoat it. It is a big hit because of what AK was showing early in camp. But I've seen stories, Alabama's most impressive running back for the second year in a row goes down. He was having a good camp. He was much improved from where he was a year ago. But let's not assume, because we didn't hear about the other running backs, that they weren't also having a great camp. And remember, we only get to hear about it from the scrimmage, but what was going on the entire week? And that's why I wanted to play Grubb's comments, because when you listen to what Coach Grubb had to say, he talked about, I'm going to just play it again. Listen to the first two things he mentions, and then he mentions AK Deer. Hold on. All right, here's Coach Grubb talking about the running back.
I thought we had some really, really good runs today. A couple pops on some cutback lanes where the guys got their shoulders square. Daniel had a nice one. TB had another good one.
So Daniel had a nice one. So, yes, AK was having a really, really good scrimmage, but Daniel Hill had a really, really good week. And Daniel Hill has been the first team back. And I know that there's some people who question whether or not Daniel Hill can be, that top dog, the guy who carries the load. I think the refurbished, if that's a good way to put it, the refurbished Daniel Hill can be. I think he's the type of player who can be a game changer now that he's lost weight. He's a little quicker. Seems like he kept his strength. His balance seems to be really good. I heard there was a run in the scrimmage where he got hit. It looked like he was going down, and he was able to get his hand down and get back up and keep running. So good things coming out of Daniel Hill. And then you also listen to him. He said that TB, that's Brown, Trayshawn Brown, had another good run. Another good run. This kid has been flashing all summer camp. And so I know AK is going to be a loss. And so I'm not going to sugarcoat that. But I think that this may catapult Brown into earlier reps. If he's out for some games, then definitely an opportunity for Brown to step in. also don't undersell what Raleigh brings to the table. Raleigh is not a guy that's going to come out there and, he's not going to be first man up on the blocking and things like that. But he is dangerous in the pass game. He's a dangerous weapon in the screen game. And so I think they will find ways to utilize him. And he's gotten a little bigger, so he can be serviceable when it comes to the run game. And I was so disappointed that I didn't get to see EJ in live scrimmage action. But I still think the kid, if he can stay healthy, is still a game changer. So, yes, how big of a hit is it that AK Deer went down? It is a big hit because AK, not only was he taking a step forward in his running, I think he had, maybe found the answer to his, why he didn't play as much last year, because I don't think it was as much about his running ability that kept him off the field. I think it was more about him being able to be successful in the entire playbook. And here's what Grubb had said about that earlier in the week.
And I mean that. I can remember being right out here in fourth quarter with him, and just the things that he thought were possible at that time compared to what he thinks possible now is very different. So I think he's a great teammate. He's a guy that can lighten the mood, spark guys a little bit, and that's been something that's been really enjoyable. But also, just being a better football player, like AK understanding protections was one of the issues of getting on the field, and he's come a long ways.
That was the issue with getting on the field. So, yeah, I really hated for the young man that he was not able to maintain his health, but hopefully he picks right back up where he left off when he's back out on the field. The next up conversation, of course, is what's up with the quarterbacks. And here's what Coach had to say about quarterback play. Coach Kalen DeBoer talking about the quarterbacks and their play, but not just their play. It's a team game, and we're going to break down what he had to say as well.
As the scrimmage went on, they both got better. Both had their moments early where they could have executed better. They could use some help from some guys once in a while.
Okay, so they both had their issues early on. All right, so he gave them part of the responsibility, but he also listened to what he says about they could use some help.
Where they could have executed better. They could use some help from some guys once in a while. They're not going to be perfect all the time. Operationally, I just think, again, it's them running the show, but everyone doing their part. And so the slow start really wasn't about one player, one position group, but both of them really, as the scrimmage went along, got in their rhythm. And so the challenge to them now will just be starting faster every single time we have these game-like scrimmages and practices coming out and setting the tone themselves.
Yeah, and later on, Coach was asked about, is he any closer to making a decision in the quarterback race? And he said, no, not any closer. And part of that is because, once again, it looked like there was an opportunity, I believe, for one of these guys to step up and maybe pull ahead or pull away, whatever, based on which guy you think is in the lead. It says they're even, but Mac is always the first quarterback up. So I have to say, as of today, until I hear something different, Mac is the starter if the game was played today. That could all change. But as the day went along, they got better. Guys need to help them out. Some of what I heard, like when you hear interceptions, your first thought is bad play by the quarterback. That's not always the case. It could have been some tip balls as well that contributed to that because later on we're going to hear from Coach talking about the defensive backs making plays off of tip balls. Well, when he's talking about that, that's talking about interceptions happening because the ball hit the offensive player in the hands, went up in the air, and, of course, the DBs dug it out. Coach talks about that later on. But I like the fact, to me, it was a good thing that this quarterback room had some adversity. Because what we don't want is to have a quarterback race where both guys are just perfect the entire time and you just have to pick one. What you want to see as a coach is how does this guy respond when things don't go well, especially early, right? If things go bad in the second quarter, third quarter, when you've had a lot of success, mentally you know, okay, I've already had some success today. I just need to recoup. But when you start off slow, things aren't going well, it's good to see the team respond. I mean, the quarterbacks respond, and that's what you saw in both of these young quarterbacks. Alabama definitely had two really, really good quarterbacks, but guys, they're not playing against air anymore. And that defensive front that Alabama's putting out there is legit. And here's what Coach had to say a little bit about the defensive line, O-line, battling it out. I'll play this and then have a few comments.
Back to the far right, Chase.
Did anybody besides AK get banged up? And also, if you could touch on how the offensive line looked.
Yeah, no one looks like it, but it's not in the rotation.
Wrong clip. Here's the right clip coming up right here.
Than AK. And I thought, our defensive line does a nice job, the way that they play physically, and there's moments where there's just matchups every single program in the country is going to have an issue with. And so there are times where that pops up. I thought, pass protection, this has been a really good week. You can see every practice. They're understanding their assignments. They're working together. The communication is there. Run game wise, I feel like it improved as well. There's some plays early where it's really not their fault. It might look like it, but it's not. And, today's scrimmage, that's just something we got to clean up again, getting numbers right and things like that. So it's been a steady improvement. That's what we expect, and that's what we got to have. So I like the direction it's going. There's been, for the most part, with the ones, a consistency with who's in the rotation, who's getting the snaps, and that's really important. So our twos certainly, got to find the rhythm. There's less continuity there. We've got some young guys that are taking a lot of snaps.
All right. He said a lot there. First of all, he talked about the D-line being legit. There's some dogs in that group. And he says he has some expectations of them. In other words, he has a high level of expectation from this group, and he's expecting them to be potentially one of the best units on this team. He talks about there were some matchups that the defense won, but that those matchups are going to be the problem for anybody. Inside of those comments, let's go inside what I think he was communicating there. I think there was some times where the tight ends found themselves one-on-one potentially with Tompkins, okay? And he was able to create a little havoc in the run game or the pass game. I think there was times where the center may have found themselves on an island with Green, who was someone who had a big run. Not a big run, but had a big time practice. So I think that's mission critical when you understand. And if you keep listening to what he said all week this offensive line was getting better. Be careful that we don't do what most people do, is they take a temporary snapshot and then they make this full-fledged analysis off of a snapshot. In other words, we only got to see, as a typical fan, you're breaking it down off of one scrimmage. He's breaking it down off of scrimmage plus what happened all week long. Even though this was technically not, the first scrimmage, that doesn't mean they haven't gone live in other practices, guys. They go live virtually every day. They just don't call it a scrimmage because they're working on other elements and situations and things like that. So this is not the only time they went live. And what you heard Coach say is, hey, yeah, a lot of people walked out of that scrimmage talking about our offensive line is in trouble and the defensive line was dominant. The defensive line was definitely dominant. But all week long, this offensive line was getting better. And how did he say they were getting better? He said in the communication, okay, in times. Then he also, because this is what everybody's wanting to know, will Alabama be able to run the ball better? Will Alabama be able to run the ball better? Yes, they will. What did you hear him say? There were times where you would blame the offensive line because it looked like there was nowhere to run. And he said, we will work on getting the numbers better. In other words, there were times when maybe we should have either checked the protection or the blocking scheme. Protection usually means pass, but check the blocking scheme to make sure we get the right numbers, he said. There was times that we may should have gotten out of a run play where they had the numbers. All of those things are what you can see the young quarterbacks and the offensive coaches and Clem and Owens and all of them working to get better at. So I know some people walked away kind of worried about the run game, especially if you only saw the first part of the scrimmage. If you only saw the first part of the scrimmage, and most of the time the media only didn't even get to see the live scrimmage, but they're making these projections for the entire time. If you only saw the first part of the scrimmage, the run game, you would be worried. If you watch what happened as the day went along, and that's what you want from an offensive, you want the offensive line and the run game to get better because that's pushing toward the fourth quarter. And you want that to be the case. And that's what we saw coming out of that scrimmage. The running backs and the quarterbacks, they got better. Javen James was one of those guys that got better. But my biggest takeaway from the scrimmage, from what Coach said, is regarding our young linebackers in that linebacker play. All spring, all summer, we've been saying Caleb Woodson, Caleb Woodson, Caleb Woodson. And we've been saying that most of us believe QB Reese is going to be the guy that runs out with those first snaps. But there's a guy who jumped out, and he's jumped on the screen. I'm gonna play what Coach DeBoer had to say, but I'm also gonna play what Kane Womack had to say about him as well. Here's Coach talking about who I think has the potential to be the next great linebacker for the Capstone and the Crimson Tide.
Yeah, sometimes from my vantage point, trying to run the whole show and don't see all the little details. Trying to make sure manage everything with each sideline, talking to and running the show there. I do think a guy like I'm speaking more about the week of practice, probably not so much about this scrimmage. A guy like Luke Metz being able to run sideline to sideline. He's a guy I'd make a note of, just like the way he plays. Every snap as a young guy, he's getting better and better, as you'd expect. You got your guys that, again, around him. Caleb's Woodson's been consistent, brings a lot of energy, and just has a lot of game experience. And so other guys that have, again, Abdul, Sanders, and he's come along all week. QB Reese, takes a lot of snaps. He's always going to be in the right place and doing his job and bringing energy as well. So guys are consistent. It's not a group that, as a group that obviously there's some names that we got to replace from last year's team, but it's a group that I think has consistently, performed. The communication starts with them. They're doing a good job there as well.
Yeah, and they're going to continue to get better as long as this D-line is able to pull the load that they've been pulling and perform the way they've been performing. This defense is only going to get better. These linebackers are Technology is a beautiful thing. I apologize for that. But technology kicked me out. So I apologize, guys, but I'm back and I'm going to continue that conversation. We're getting ready to hear from Coach Kane Womack talking about the uh, Luke Metz and what he means to this particular defense. If it gives me a all right. All right. So let's get
Yeah, that's something just from a physicality standpoint.
Luke Metz coming up right here, guys. This is definitely live. We film our podcast live, so you get to grow with us as as we go. But here is Coach Kane Womack talking about Luke Metz and what he's seen in him this camp.
Luke has always been a guy that when you watch his tape, the energy he plays with, the passion he plays with, and the physicality. And I thought at the beginning of spring ball, he got a little bit where he was more concerned about, the scheme, right, and making a mistake, and he was playing a little bit hesitant at the beginning of spring. And so talk to him like, hey, man, go back to who you are and what you do. You're a guy that can go run and hit and be decisive. And he kind of took that to heart. He took strides as we moved into spring ball, and then you saw that through the summertime, and right now he's playing at a very high level. So excited about him, excited about a number of those linebackers right now that are really playing aggressive. One of the things that I think you see from our defensive line playing more consistent right now is that because they're in their gap and they're doing their job, the linebackers are now playing more aggressive. The safeties are coming down and fitting more aggressively because they have confidence in guys holding their gap responsibility. So all those things, right, go hand in hand when it starts up front.
Yeah, I love that. He not only talked about what Luke Metz is bringing to the table, he also talked about the impact on all of the linebackers and their ability to play and be more aggressive because of the line of the play of the defensive line. And so have to love it. Luke Metz, I'm predicting is going to be one of the breakout players for Alabama. Coach talked about him being one of those guys. He just kind of catches your eyes. Didn't necessarily have a big day in the scrimmage. Nothing was really said about the inside linebackers in scrimmage. That may be a good thing. I'm not saying it's not a good thing. I'm not saying it is a good thing. I'm saying it might be that they're so consistent that they're just making plays. But I do love the fact that the linebackers and the safeties are getting up in the run game, and maybe we won't see some of what we saw against Indiana, where they were just gashing us up the field. Same type of thing that was happening in terms of Georgia and Oklahoma when we struggled to beat Oklahoma. Anytime we've had, a team that's had success against us, many times Vanderbilt, last year or year before last, they were able to gash us up the middle. And Coach actually talks about why that's the case. And here's what he had to say about what Alabama's done to kind of help to make sure that we don't get gashed up the middle. So thanks, Luke Metz. Looking forward to you being there. But I'm really excited about what this D-line brings to the table. And Keita23 said that's a big deal with him saying that about the D-line, talking about Coach DeBoer, talking about this D-line and his expectation for them. But I'm more excited about what Kane Womack said about Tompkins, the Bandits, and the other D-linemen.
Yeah, Devin he's a special skill set just to be that big and athletic, and he can move and do some things both from the bandit position and from the three technique position. It allows me as a play caller, right? There's a lot of different things that we can do with him, but just his physicality, his ability to take on blocks, disengage when. A lot of times offenses are trying to figure out how can they attack that C-gap area, right? So they're going to create, tight ends in that to create a C-gap area, right, or a split zone concept, right, or insert somebody back inside. And so if you can constrict that area, right, it makes it more difficult to run the ball, right, or for the ball to be able to wind back. And he is a very physical presence in there. You know, you look at the tight ends in our league, and there's some really good tight ends, but he's going to be really hard, right, to be able to say, okay, we're going to put a tight end one-on-one with him and win.
That's what Coach DeBoer was talking about. There's some matchups. There's going to be problems for other teams as well. Talking about that tight end trying to block Devin Tompkins
in that C area. So it definitely helps the dynamic of what we need to do to stop the run in that regard.
Yes. And for those of you who may or may not heard, he also talked last week, and he talked about Alabama was number 14 out of 16 teams when it came to the D-line. Let that sink in. 13 teams had bigger defensive lines than us. That's going to be a problem that is magnified. First of all, it means that you're going to get pushed around a little bit. It means that teams don't have to double team because they don't have to double team, they're going to be able to get up to the linebackers. They're going to be able to get up and get to the second and third level on their blocks because the defensive line doesn't command a double team. So your linebackers end up playing better. It also impacts the ability for your offensive line to get better. Alabama was practicing, I don't know who team 15 and 16 was in the SEC, but the likelihood that Alabama played last year against 6 to 7 defenses in the SEC alone, much less in Florida State and in Indiana, Georgia twice. So they were going to run against guys who were bigger, longer, more length, more physical than what Alabama practiced against. And I'm not going to sugarcoat it. That is a problem, but this coaching staff did address it. That's been the case for the last 2 years. I hope with that change and improvement, Coach Womack has without a doubt got this defense headed in the right direction. One of the other things that Coach talked about in the scrimmage that we didn't bring up that may have also got the quarterbacks off to a slower start. Lottie Brooks was out. He was not able to be there. And so he's definitely a game changer, and defense was able to do some things in terms of what they wanted to accomplish when they were going against the offense. And so I hope Lottie's back. Hopefully we get him back out there to help this defense. I'm going to close. There's so much more that we could get to, but I'm going to go ahead and close on this final clip, I think, with Coach DeBoer talking about, he was asked about the different units. And I want you to, once again, listen to what he's saying in terms of the defense, the defensive line. They are so impressive that he throws it in there. Yeah, I don't want to not say them because they're good. Sort of like, when someone asks you if you're a school teacher, you tend to talk about the kids who have made improvements versus the kid who always makes the A+, right? Because you want to show that you're doing your job and things are getting better. Here's Coach talking a little bit about the different units and what they brought to the table. Coach DeBoer, we'll hear him, and then we'll have our closing thoughts and comments on today's program. So thank you for being part of it. We'll be back in just a moment, but here's Coach talking about those different units.
There was times, we had a couple tip balls, so the DBs did a nice job making a play because they were picking it up right off the ground. And those plays aren't always made. It wasn't just gimmies. I thought there were some good plays where we yards after catch. I thought the running backs were chewing up some yards there and got better as the scrimmage went along.
And I want to start right. First of all, he said the DBs made plays where they were digging balls out. Those are those tip balls I mentioned earlier. And then he talks about yards after catch. That's Deron Williams and the running backs catching the ball, making some guys miss. I heard that Austin utilized the running backs a little bit out there in the flat. So I'm sure Keelan did as well. But sometimes when you get people to talk to you about scrimmage, they only tell you what. I didn't get to stay for the entire scrimmage, so they only tell you what they're looking for, what they're looking at. But here's Coach finishing up those comments.
So I think our D line's just been really consistent, and I don't want to take that for granted. So I should mention that I have an expectation for them, and I think that they've done a nice job. So I thought the tight ends as the scrimmage went along got better. So getting guys in every snap that we take, it matters, especially with the younger guys across the board on our football team.
The running backs and the tight ends got better as the scrimmage went along. That's two groups that are mission critical. I think the tight end room is the key to the running back room taking the next big jump. Owens could be the get or steal or the one of the most important, least talked about hires of the offseason. Coaching that tight end room, there's some animals in that room, some beasts that are making a difference in the run game. So it's been fun to kind of cover this team and watch this team grow because we had so many questions at the end of last year when the season was over. The sky was falling, guys were going into the portal. O-line was looking slim, but I think this coaching staff, starting with Courtney Morgan and others, have done a great job getting the right guys in here, the right mix. They kept 47 of 48 players. Are they where they need to be right now? Absolutely not, but they are trending in the right direction in terms of what they bring to the table and the approach that they want to have in terms of this team. And I'm going to close with just I think this team, for me, it's the attitude, the aggressiveness of this team that is making a difference. They are a different type of team. They're more aggressive. They're more intense. They seem to be more focused. So there's once again, I apologize, technology. Something's going on with AT&T. They kicked me out again. I mean, not AT&T, my Restream. So I apologize. What I was saying was this team is a different animal comes to their aggressive nature and how they're approaching each other. I think they're more physical. I think they're bigger, stronger, and just more aggressive. The intensity in which they're competing seems to be at a higher level. And I said that was going to be the last audio, but Coach Grubb said something about the team, and I thought it was worth listening to as well. And here's what Coach Grubb had to say when he described this team, and then I promise I will close after these comments from Coach Grubb.
Between each other, or I think they're highly competitive. I've been super impressed with what the guys look like initially, just the energy between each other. But I think the key for any good football team, what our guys have done a good job, or I think honestly maybe a better job than last year, is you want a team that is competitive, not combative. And that's what I've seen. You got to have the ability. Like, there's going to be some skirmishes. Like, don't get me wrong, but guys can get over it. They can go talk after practice. And I think you're starting to see a really tight football team, and that'll take us a long ways.
And I totally agree with it. He said they're competitive, not combative. Competitive, not combative, which means that they're out there competing. And the fact that there's enough depth that the first team guys, whether it's the quarterback race, whether it's the running back room, the tight end room, O-line, D-line. Linebackers may not have as much, but it looks like there may be more competition there than we thought, with Sanders coming in and QB Reese and Luke Metz all competing for that other role. Caleb Woodson locking it down. I think he's pretty solid. Then in the defensive backfield, Noel or Carmelo O'Neal. I said no, Carmelo O'Neal making plays at scrimmage. There's a lot of competition happening on this team, and I love it that they are competing. I've heard that Sedarian Morgan is one of those guys who is aggressive and competitive and likes to play until the whistle blows. That's what I heard about him. Willing to get in there and get in a little skirmish with the guys. So all of that happening is a good thing, and it's only going to make this team better. I think at times the numbers were so low the last couple of years that Alabama may not have had as much depth as they needed in terms of what was happening on the field. Maybe they weren't as deep, so the competition wasn't as great with guys pushing them, and the way you practice. If you're worried about not having enough guys to show up on Saturday, you may have to take a little bit off, and I think that kind of caught up with Alabama as well over the last couple of years. But I think they fixed all of that. I think they remedied that problem, that challenge, and that issue. Guys, I so appreciate you jumping on here with me and with us and this day as we get ready to get out of here. I want to remind you that each and every day, Monday through Friday, we have the Martin Houston Show with Martin, Xavier, and Simeon. The whole crew will be back. The Houston Huddle usually has 3 voices, every angle.
Yeah.
But it's just me today. Glad to have
You've been
you
with the Houston Huddle. Xavier, the mind that knows the game. Recruiting pipelines, he calls every name. From prospects rising up, to strategies untold. He paints the bigger picture, watch the story unfold. Simeon broke it down, play by play, thought by thought. Clarity in every word, logic that can't be bought. Pieces of the puzzle, he fits them all just right. Taking every angle, bringing insights to light. Then Martin stepped in, champion on the field. Passion and leadership, the drive you can feel. From national wins to lessons learned in life. He brought that fire that cuts through like a knife. Together they guided you, from locker room to the game. 3 voices united, never sounding the same. Every angle covered, headline to the soul. The Houston Huddle, where you feel whole. The Houston Huddle, where the knowledge collides, 3 voices stronger, standing side by side. Now it's time to lock in, let the energy flow. This is your sign, unfortunately it's time to go. You've been listening to the Houston Huddle, like, follow, subscribe. Don't miss the next ball, stay ready, stay hungry. Bring your passion to the fight. Till next time, keep it locked and keep your game tight. Yeah.